Um, the experiences are just as infinite as there are people and ways of,
Right.
you know, the human.
It'll have its
the
own
human
flavor
being.
for each person.
Yeah, I've noticed that with a lot of people, the experiences can just have such a broad range, and some can be visual, auditory, sensory, you know, all these different experiences, and they all bring knowledge. When there's enough clarity there, you get that. But what I'm trying to say is that there's this common denominator in these experiences that when you take away the experience, the knowledge that's left over of who you are is there.
So you're saying that we could, as this interview show progresses week after week, and I'll be interviewing all kinds of people, they'll report all kinds of experiences, but I'm likely to find a common denominator that is pretty much the same for all these people.
Yeah, yeah.
And could you try to clarify a little bit more what that common denominator is?
Well, it's experiencing this,
Silence?
yes, the unbounded silence, this infinite silence. That's probably the main characteristic, I would say, of any awakening, is that you become aware of this level of consciousness, because it's conscious, it's there, it doesn't sleep. You know, you can go to sleep at night and it can still be there.
Does that happen to you?
Yes.
So when you sleep at night, what is your experience during sleep?
There's an awareness there that doesn't sleep. I can watch my body fall asleep, I can watch my body dream, I can watch my body wake up. It's not witnessing, it's different.
Are you always aware during sleep, or just sometimes when you think about it you realize that you are, or something?
There's some times during the night when you go into the really, really deep rest, and it can be really quiet and still. But I think there's still a little bit of that awareness there.
But most of this might also sound strange to people who've never sort of contemplated this particular thing. People in the TM movement are familiar with what they call it witnessing sleep, but the idea is, and I'll let you say it, the idea is that there's, you know, three states of consciousness that we all commonly experience: waking, dreaming, and sleeping, and then there's what is called in Sanskrit turiya, or fourth state of consciousness, which is a state of awareness that is independent of and foundational to the other three, and that it's actually possible to be conscious of that level even if you're soundly asleep.
Yeah, restful alertness, it's also tagged as.
Right.
So it's, yeah, a lot of people experience that as well.
Yeah.
So with this plethora of experiences, the common denominator is awareness, being aware of awareness, actually. I know in Maharishi talked about all the different states of consciousness and different experiences and so forth, based on his own state of consciousness. And I can say that what George and I experience, and others that I know, it's exactly like he said, but it's not at all like he said. So it's my own experience of the same knowledge. It's George's own experience of the same knowledge. You have your own experience of that knowledge.
Yeah, it's like, you know, he offered a roadmap. I mean, a roadmap is a depiction of a place that you aren't experiencing, but it's meant to be a guide for when you get there. And so you'll recognize the place. But, you know, you can look at a map of Montana and memorize the whole thing, but when you actually get to Montana, it may bear very little resemblance to the concept you had of what Montana was going to be like, you know.
Yeah, the mountains are pretty big.
One point that I find interesting in reading and listening to a lot of different spiritual teachers is that for some reason a number of them, even though they themselves may have practiced meditation or some sort of spiritual disciplines for decades, they undergo an awakening. They become awakened, and then they turn around and say, you don't need to meditate, you don't need to do spiritual practices, it's just going to happen to you when it's meant to happen, you know, don't try for anything, blah, blah, blah. And that seems hypocritical to me, and kind of ironic in that, you know, they themselves apparently arrived at where they were as a result of dedicated spiritual practice. Any comments on that point, either of you or both of you?
I think there's those that have no spiritual practice at all. I don't know about atheists, but I do know that it can just happen. you know, it can happen at a very young age, it can happen at the moment of death,
Uh-huh.
so. Okay.
Yeah, as far as like, kind of like you mentioned, you take a boat across the river and then you tell everybody, you shout across the river to those who haven't crossed, and you say, you don't need a boat.
Right.
Look, here I am.
Yeah, yeah.
All you gotta do is be here. I identify with that, I gotta say, to some degree, but, I mean, what that strikes in me is that, then you get into the world of karma, which is that, we all are having compulsions to do whatever we do, however we behave. And if somebody wants to teach a certain thing, then it's their right to do that. And if it looks hypocritical to you or to somebody else, then that's also the karmic thing widening out. You have a judgment on it, and somebody else might not think it's hypocritical. So it's just the waves go up and they go down. And it's always the ocean, whether it's going up or down. And that's where the bliss is, actually, is knowing that if the wave is up or the wave is down, it's still motion of the self.
You know, another twist on your boat analogy is that I think some people, they get in the boat, they go across the river, they get to the other shore, and they don't want to get out of the boat. You know, it's like, my boat, I love this boat, I really identify with this boat, it's my boat, it's better than your boat.
You know, I have a thing to say about that. If somebody has that, and that happened to me, I kind of think of it as an analogy about getting on a train.
Right.
And you pay your ticket, you get on the train, and you fully think that you will get off the train like you got on. Like the train is going to take you somewhere. And you give your power to that train.
Right.
And after a while, if you check in, what happened to the train? Where's the train? The train disappeared. So I would think if somebody is listening and they're thinking, oh yeah, well I'm not ready, or I still have, I'm not the one. Look around. Where's the vehicle? Where is it? Is it still there? Because it's really you. It really always was you. It started with you and it ends with you.
Yeah,
When you guys, had undergone this shift and you felt like you really knew who you were for the first time, did you at the same time have a feeling like you had always known what you were and you just had somehow overlooked it? Was there that sense like, hey, I've always known this? It's like you could, to throw another metaphor in here, the sun is shining, there's clouds in the way. When the clouds drift away, then the sun is unimpeded, but from the perspective of the sun realizes, I've always been shining, those clouds really didn't make a difference one way or the other.
I think it's sort of like that. It's not that I've always known it, but that I've always been that. It's like you discover something about yourself you always were.
That you realize you
Yes.
always were.
And
And
you didn't
that's-
know it before, but now you do.
And that's why it's so ordinary, even though you might have some pretty flashy experiences. I've had some pretty amazing experiences, but it's so ordinary. It
Yeah.
just feels like, yes, this is natural. This
Good.
is who I am.
Excellent. Well, this is a good note to end on. We're almost out of time. I just want to close by saying that you have been listening to Awakenings, a new show on KRUU LP 100.1 FM, the voice of Fairfield, Iowa, and beyond. My name is Rick Archer, and we've been talking to George and Mary Foster, and we'll hopefully do this again. Not hopefully. If you're listening to this, they've approved the pilot, and we're going to do it every week. And we will be announcing what time it will be, and it will be a call-in show on subsequent occasions. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Rick.
Nice. Good. We did it.